Chapter 1. Chaos on the Leviathan. Status report. Kira Novak's voice cut through the cacophony of blaring alarms as she strode onto the bridge of the Leviathan. At 23, she was the youngest officer on the ship's crew, but her steady presence and keen mind belied her age. Lieutenant Kors Malik turned from his station, his weathered features etched with concern. "We're taking heavy fire from an unknown enemy vessel. Shields at 40% and failing." Another volley rocked the Leviathan, nearly throwing Kira from her feet. She steadied herself against the central console. "Get me visual!" The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the endless black canvas of space, marred by brilliant streaks of weapons fire. A compact but menacing ship hung in the distance, its alien design like nothing in the registry. "Who are they? Why are we under attack?" Kira demanded. Commander Ren Varys, Kira's mentor and second-in-command, joined her at the console. "They've made no attempt at communication. Judging by their assault, I'd wager they're after the Leviathan's experimental hyperdrive." Kira's blood ran cold. The cutting-edge slipstream drive they were transporting back to Allied space had the potential to tip the scales in the escalating interstellar conflicts, if it fell into the wrong hands. "Evasive pattern Kalen 5, she ordered. "Helm, get us out of—" Her words were drowned out by the thunderous impact of enemy torpedoes smashing into the Leviathan's forward shields. The bridge lurched violently, consoles erupting in showers of sparks. Ren steadied Kira with one hand as debris rained around them. "Novak, you need to evacuate the forward sections and seal off the—" With a bone-chilling groan of buckled metal, a massive breach tore open the bridge's viewport, venting atmosphere in a raging cyclone. Ren shoved Kira aside at the last instant before the decompression struck him like a sledgehammer, sending his body tumbling into the endless void. "No!" Kira's scream was swallowed by the roar of escaping air as emergency bulkheads slammed shut around the breach. But the image of her mentor's lifeless form drifting into oblivion would be seared into her mind forever. She stood in stunned silence, the bridge's few remaining lights flickering across her ashen face. So much death and destruction in mere moments. Her first true trial under fire. "Ensign Novak?" Malik's voice finally broke through the fog enveloping her senses. "Orders?" Kira steadied her trembling hands and straightened her back. She was in command now, like it or not. With one last look towards the empty void where Ren had fallen, she steeled her resolve. "Prepare to return fire, and get me the diplomatic convoy on secure channel." Chapter 2. Running blind. The Leviathan shuddered as its remaining batteries lashed back at their mysterious attackers. On the battered bridge, Kira monitored the feeble counterattack through a haze of smoke and sparks. "Damage report!" she called out. Malik's hands danced across his console. "Main power is offline. We're running on emergency batteries with maybe 12 hours of life support remaining. Sublight engines are down, maneuvering thrusters at 15%. His grim expression said it all. The Leviathan was dead in the water. "What about the hyperdrive? Please tell me we can still make the jump to slipstream." Malik shook his head. "That entire section was vented during the attack. The drive is gone." Kira's stomach twisted into a knot. Without the revolutionary hyperdrive propulsion system that had been their cargo, they were adrift in uncharted territory with no hope of calling for help or even limping home. A new voice crackled over the comms laced with static. "Ensign Novak! This is Ambassador Velor of the Rillian convoy. We were alerted to the attack." Kira toggled the channel. "Ambassador, I'm currently in command after—" She paused, swallowing hard. "After a momentary loss of our senior officers. We've driven off our attackers, but our hyperdrive and sublight engines are destroyed. We're stranded out here." "Understood." Velor's measured tones betrayed only a hint of concern. "Our convoy's diplomatic shuttle remains undamaged thanks to your crew's valor. But without the Leviathan, we have no way to continue to the negotiations." "I'm aware, Ambassador. Abandoning ship may be our only—" "Incoming bogies!" Malik shouted. They've come about for another attack run. On the view screen, Kira watched twin lances of deadly crimson light streak towards them from the alien craft. Her heart pounded in her ears. "Evasive maneuvers, all power to forward shields!" But the Leviathan didn't budge. Its thrusters flashed feebly, failing to alter their course by a meter. Bracing herself, Kira prepared for the inevitable impact, when a strange warbling sound washed over the bridge. The crimson lances twisted and bent, arcing away from the Leviathan at the last instant before dissipating entirely. "What in star's name?" Malik's voice trailed off. Velor's authoritative tone cut through the confusion. "Ensign, I've deployed a massively reinforced subspace damping field around our shuttle. It redirected those weapons just now." Kira turned towards the flickering image of the ambassador's lined face. "You have that kind of defensive capability on a diplomatic cruiser." "Strictly for emergency use," Velor replied with a curt nod, "though it seems the time for discretion has passed. My convoy carries more than just dignitaries." As the words hung in the air, the technological marvels of Velor's warship came into clearer focus. Their only hope might be an uneasy partnership with these enigmatic allies. "Ambassador, I'm transferring you our tactical analysis from the initial attack. Maybe you can identify who, or what, we're dealing with here." Kira felt her shoulders sag slightly. She'd been through the ringer already, and this crisis was just beginning. But now at least they weren't facing the unknown alone. The battle was joined once more. The race to survive had just begun. Chapter 3. The Edge of Oblivion. The Leviathan drifted silently, its running lights extinguished to avoid detection. On the bridge, the air was heavy with tension and the acrid stench of fried circuitry. Kira studied the holographic star maps projected over the central console, their gentle rotation serving as a reminder that they were essentially lost adrift in the inky void. She looked up as Ambassador Velor's measured tones crackled over the comms. "The readings you provided, unfortunately, did not match any known stellar military forces or marauders in our databases. Whatever that hostile vessel represents, it predates even our oldest records." Kira frowned. "So we're dealing with an unknown 1,000,000-to-1 long shot. Those are great odds. Ensign." Velor's voice took on a paternal tone. "Sarcasm is ill-advised in our predicament. But you raise a fair point. We cannot outrun or outgun our pursuers through conventional means. Not with the Leviathan so crippled." A new voice joined the channel. One of the science officers chimed in urgently. "I may have a possible solution. Long-range sensors have detected a decaying ion trail leading into the Nirga Nebula." Kira's eyes widened at the mention of that dreaded anomaly. The Nirga Nebula was a roiling maelstrom of electromagnetic interference, radiation, and gravimetric eddies, all swirling like a malevolent cosmic vortex. No vessel could safely navigate its chaotic interior. "You can't be serious," she muttered. Before she could raise further objections, Velor's firm tones cut her off. "An inspired gamble, Ensign. I concur. The Nirga Nebula's very perils may be our unlikely safe harbour to elude pursuit and make repairs." "But, Ambassador," Malik protested, "our charts barely have that region mapped, let alone plotted for a stable vector through its depths. We'd be flying blacker than blind." "Then we'll guide you." An inhuman harmonic resonance vibrated through the bridge, dropping a startled hush over the crew. When it passed, Velor continued in that same resolute cadence. "Our people have resources at our disposal to safely navigate anomalies most civilizations cannot conceive of. Trust in us, Ensign Novak, and perhaps you may yet live to unravel the greater mysteries at work." Kira felt a shiver run down her spine at the ambassador's veiled implications. First that incredible redirection of enemy fire, now talk of units of cosmic cartography. Just what were these Rillians? "Very well," she said at last with a resolute nod. "Malik, lay in a course into the Nirga Nebula and prepare for our updated trajectory from the ambassador's data stream." As her crew scrambled to ready the battered Leviathan, Kira couldn't shake a dawning sense of dread. If they did indeed survive running that celestial gauntlet, she had a sinking suspicion far greater trials awaited them on the other side. A thunderous impact against the weakening aft shields reminded them their mysterious pursuers wouldn't be far behind. They were running out of time and options. "Take us into that cosmic maelstrom, Lieutenant," Kira said quietly. "Somehow I don't think we'll be alone for much longer once we're inside." With that ominous prediction, the Leviathan's thrusters flared to life, pulling the wounded behemoth of a ship towards the roiling tempest of the Nerga Nebula, into the jaws of one terrifying unknown, and toward whatever fresh nightmares might await. Chapter 4. Enigma of the Drifting Tomb. Eerie emerald and indigo clouds swirled around the Leviathan as it drifted through the heart of the Nerga Nebula. On the bridge, a sense of disquiet hung over the exhausted crew like a shroud. "Radiation levels holding at maximum shielded tolerance," Malik reported, his voice strained. "But I'll feel a lot better once we've put this maelstrom behind us." Kira nodded wearily. For 3 interminable days, they had ridden Velo's encrypted telemetry like a meteor surfer, letting the bizarre gravitonic forces and spectral maelstroms guide their course rather than fight them head-on. It was a wise strategy, but one that extracted a heavy toll. The bridge's view screen flickered with false color interference, struggling to resolve tangible imagery from the nebula's warped energies. Kira leaned closer, straining her eyes as a bizarre structure gradually took form amidst the cosmic aurora. "Am I seeing what I think I'm seeing?" Velor's voice sliced through the static with renewed urgency. "Affirmative, Ensign. You've made an extraordinary discovery. A derelict spacecraft of non-aligned design." Even adrift in this hellish nebula, such an impossibility defied all rational explanation. A cold knot tightened in the pit of Kira's stomach. "I'm picking up intermittent power signatures from within the wreck," one of the science officers reported. "Highly attenuated, but it has to be coming from some kind of operational source, or whatever's left of it after however long this ship has been drifting. The materials analysis confirms its hull is laced with exotic crystalline compounds I've never encountered," another voice offered, awestruck. "Structural matrices and molecular reinforcement like nothing in our scientific records." Kira studied the eerie ancient craft warily. "Then it's safe to assume this derelict predates even the most archaic stellar civilizations. Which begs the question, what in the 9 hells is it doing clear out here?" Malik shook his head slowly, voicing the unthinkable. "And what if its crew, if it even had one, is still aboard?" A heavy silence fell over the bridge before Ambassador Velor's distinctive tones sliced through the tension like a scalpel. "I'm afraid we have little choice but to investigate this anomaly further. As daunting as it may be, the opportunity to expand our knowledge, perhaps gain some insight into our enigmatic foes, is too promising to ignore." Kira frowned as the words hung in the air. Part of her was profoundly unsettled by the prospect of breaching that eldritch wreck. But another part, her scientific curiosity stoked by the endless mysteries of the cosmos, couldn't turn away. "You think the answers we need might be found in there?" she asked quietly. Velor let out a grim exhalation. "More than answers, Ensign. What we may uncover on that derelict craft could prove the key to our very survival." With that dire pronouncement crystallizing the urgency of their situation, chaos erupted on the bridge once more as Kira began barking out orders to assemble an away team. "Malik, prepare a security contingent for hostile threat potentials. We've come too far to be taken unawares if something stirs from hibernation within that hulk." Her eyes narrowed with grim determination as she looked back at the derelict's haunting silhouette ahead. "All hands, stand by for extreme environmental hazards. Whatever secrets it holds, that alien graveyard is about to have some uninvited guests." Chapter 5. The Crucible. Smoke and ember plumes smeared the endless night as the space battle raged around the Leviathan. On the bridge, klaxon wails vied with the thunder of distant detonations for dominance. "We've got multiple hostile contacts, bearing 093 by 180. Malik's voice rang out over the bedlam. They're not just after us this time. It's an all-out fleet engagement. Kira braced herself against the rattling deck plates as another shockwave pounded the Leviathan's weakened shields. And whose side are we on in this charming little conflagration? The bridge's holomonitors flickered to life, displaying the unmistakable emblem of the Rillian concordance alongside another, less familiar, stellar crest. "You'll want to hear this for yourself," Malik said grimly, patching through an incoming transmission. The raspy baritone that crackled over the speakers was tinged with static, but carried an unmistakable authoritative weight. "Concordance forces, this is Admiral Cratton of the Honda Imperium. We have assumed a defensive posture and are ready to bring our fleet to bear, but require your unconditional surrender of all acquired xenoarchaeological data and artifacts from the—" The transmission was abruptly cut off as a fresh hail of incoming fire rocked the Leviathan's frame. Sparks showered from overhead conduits as Kira struggled to make sense of the chaos unfolding around them. "I thought we were flying solo," she shouted over the din. "Who are these Honda hostiles, and why are they—" But Velor's measured tones sounded over the bridge's comms, his words laced with a rare sense of grim urgency. "Be calm and stand resolute, Captain Novak. This conflict was inevitable from the moment your crew first discovered, no, reawakened, the ancient Iritskar derelict within the Nirga Nebula." Kira opened her mouth, a dozen questions stammering for release, but Velor pressed on. "The Honda are an old enemy of the Concordance, one with an unhealthy fixation on acquiring secrets and relics left behind by the cosmos's earliest stellar civilizations. Secrets we have learned the hard way are better left sealed and unmolested." A proximity alert screamed as a barrage of Honda ordnance detonated perilously close to the Leviathan's ventral scars. Kira tasted copper as her molars clenched hard enough to crack. "With all due respect, Ambassador," she managed through gritted teeth once the shaking subsided, "now might be a good time to start sharing some of those galactic backstories you've clearly been sitting on all along." There was an uncharacteristic pause before Velor responded, his words weighed with the weariness of ages. "You are owed that truth, Captain, though I caution the path ahead will try your very soul. What you unlocked from the haunted slumber of that Iritskar crypt was never meant for our understandings or abilities." As Velor launched into a mind-bending tale of incomprehensible cosmic civilizations and Lovecraftian technologies from the universe's grand unveiling, Kira felt a creeping sense of unreality overtake her. How could the secrets plundered from one derelict alien hulk have set two vast interstellar powers on a collusion course toward cataclysmic conflict? Was the price of knowledge truly that dear? She could only listen in mounting disquiet as Velor revealed the full extent of the cosmic abyss they were all now staring into, and how Kira herself might be the sole broker to keep it from consuming them all. Chapter 6. Transcendence. Brilliant jets of incandescent fury lanced across the inky void as the battle reached its crescendo. On the Leviathan's battered bridge, Kira Novak steadied her trembling hands over the firing controls. "Targeting solution locked on the Honda flagship's reactor core," Malik stated, his voice taut yet professional. "You're cleared for the final strike, Captain." Kira's jaw clenched until her teeth ground together. In the smouldering aftermath of the Iritskar artifact's cosmic unveiling, she had witnessed the stark, mind-bending depths of oblivion those elder races once commanded. Even now, fragments of that harrowing knowledge burned like white phosphorus in her mind's eye. Such power, she realized with a soul-lacerating clarity, could never be allowed to fall into the wrong hands again, no matter the cost. Not to the Honda Imperium's demented crusade of subjugation and conquest. Yet even as her finger tensed against the trigger stud, another voice cut through her consciousness with the ethereal timbre of a death knell. "Flailing to the bitter end as capacity dictates, I see." The ghostly apparition coalesced in the burning halogens of a ruptured bulkhead. Kira felt the blood drain from her face as she recognized the mercurial form taking shape before her. "No, you died on the derelict. I watched you," Commander Ren Varys's once noble features twisted into a cruel leer of derision. "You think that encounter on the Yuritskar crypt was my sole undoing? How pedestrian!" As the apparition slinked closer, Kira saw with dawning revulsion that whole swathes of Ren's physical form had been augmented, subsumed into synthetic and xenofabricated components. Like an eldritch engram rendered in bleeding cybernetics. What are you?" The question withered on Kira's lips before it was fully formed. "Something transcendent," Ren replied in a scathing rasp. "Finally freed of the meat-bound shackles you still wallow in, and with the Hunder's final victory at hand, I will at last take my rightful place among the inheritors of Yuritskar's grand design." At last, the jagged pieces fell into place for Kira, her former mentor's seeming demise, the conveniently timed mercenary attack, her relentless drive to uncover the artifacts that plunged the galaxy into this apocalyptic conflict. As if reading her anguished thoughts, Ren flashed a grotesque pantomime of a smile. "You always did have such potential, Kira, once you shed your infantile moralities." "I'll never be a party to your selfish megalomaniacal ambitions," Kira spat back, hefting the Leviathan's weapon controls. "The Yuritskar's secrets die here, with the likes of you." Ren cocked his augmented head in an obscene simulacrum of a shrug. "So be it, child." In the blink of an eye, Ren's derelict frame morphed into a bladed kinetic flechette, hurling itself across the bridge. Braka! Space itself seemed to convulse in the wake of the Leviathan's disruptor salvo, ripping into the Hunder flagship's exposed reactor core. The superheated plumes licked out like cosmic tentacles, shredding the capital ship's sprawling gun decks and scattering disintegrating debris in a kaleidoscopic devastation. Kira reeled from the discharge's psychosonics, her inner ears ringing with the diminishing howls of 1,000 expiring souls. Through the blazing corona of dissipating energy, she saw Ren's flechette form vaporized, finally destroyed. At what ultimate price, though? The captain squeezed her eyes shut, unable to shut out the cosmic grandeur's terrifying scale. All to deny those primordial revelations from falling into the wrong hands. When her eyes opened once more, Kira's irises shone like smouldering suns ignited from within. Her consciousness had boiled away the quaintly human hang-ups of fear and doubt immolated by her terrible vision. She had stared into the faceless cosmic oblivion and transcended at last. Settling back into the command dais, Kira began issuing terse instructions over fleet-wide channels, coordinating the remnants of the Allied battle groups in the wake of hostilities. She was the keeper of unimaginable knowledge now, and the burden of its vigil would be borne until her dying spark winked out. As the smoke cleared and the electromagnetic shroud of the battle fell silent once more, whispers of the name Novastrik had already begun spreading among those still bearing witness. A legend was taking form of how a single indomitable soul had transcended the mortal boundaries of all brute creation. The first regent of a new cosmic order was being forged,